All right. Hey, Mike,
Ethan.
please rise and put your hand over your heart for the Chestertonian national anthem.
We got a national anthem. All right.
hmm It's emotional. Well, we're reading the flag of the world, so to me, it felt like we needed like a good flag song.
A lot of patriotism in this one.
Yeah, it's real patriotic.
Oh, say, can you see with Chestertonian eyes? She so proudly inhaled at the hansom cab's last stopping. Who with sword, cane in hand, 1,000 essays he writes, while
There you are.
eugenist fools were so rapidly dropping. And his crazy wild hair, so unkempt and curled, gave proof through the night of the flag of the world. Oh, say does the cape that he wears yet wave, or the land of the elves, and the rings of the insane?
You're listening to another episode of Chesterton's Gateway with Ethan Nicolle and Michael Grumbine, a podcast of the Orthodox by the Orthodox for the Orthodox shall not be infringed. So ask not what your podcast can do for you. You get the idea.
Nice. I like
All
the
right.
opening.
Here we are. We're reading flag of the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of patriotism in this, and if you don't read it carefully, some would say globalist style patriotism. So I think
Lobos.
this will be
Oh yeah.
fun to unpack.
Yeah. If you can read, kind of read it wrong and think it's like, I'm a patriot of Earth. I'm not, I'm not of the United States. I'm a citizen of the universe. It's
Right.
not what
He says cosmic patriotism at one
Mhm.
point. So anyway, we'll get into this. It's
Okay.
fun.
Because like you were saying, it's kind of your theory, and I actually share the theory that this might be where a lot of people drop off when they start getting through. Because this I get lost in this one a lot. I'll admit. There's gonna be that silence after he reads the paragraph where you're thinking I might say something. I'm probably
Where the audience is hoping you'll say something.
yeah. So yeah, here we are. We are reading. We're in a new chapter.
The Flag of the World, Chapter 4 of my book Orthodoxy, published in 1908. This chapter has been divided into 4 parts. This is part 1.
Correct.
And just to remind our readers, we just finished your and my favorite chapter, which is Ethics of Elfland. We finished it off.
It's all downhill from here.
It's downhill, then uphill, then downhill.
Yeah.
But we had a great podcast it was fun having Dale on, and I
Yeah.
think hopefully he'll be able to join us for another one.
Yep, the plan is for the first part of Paradoxes, which is the next chapter, so in a
Excellent.
month in podcast time.
Right. And who knows in real time? No one ever knows.
No one ever knows.
When do recordings happen?
Mhm. Alright, well, speaking of recording,
Let's jump into the flag of the world. Let's all become world citizens.
let's play this old real recording of GK Chesterton reading this part of his chapter. Here we go.
When I was a boy, there were 2 curious men running about who were called the optimist and the pessimist. I constantly used the words myself, but I cheerfully confess that I never had any very special idea of what they meant. The only thing which might be considered evident was that they could not mean what they said, for the ordinary verbal explanation was that the optimist thought this world as good as it could be, while the pessimist thought it as bad as it could be. Both these statements being obviously raving nonsense, one had to cast about for other explanations. An optimist could not mean a man who thought everything right and nothing wrong, for that is meaningless. It is like calling everything right and nothing left. Upon the whole, I came to the conclusion that the optimist thought everything good except the pessimist, and that the pessimist thought everything bad except himself. It would be unfair to omit altogether from the list the mysterious but suggestive definition said to have been given by a little girl. An optimist is a man who looks after your eyes, and a pessimist is a man who looks after your feet. I am not sure that this is not the best definition of all. There is even a sort of allegorical truth in it, for there might perhaps be a profitable distinction drawn between that more dreary thinker, who thinks merely of our contact with the earth from moment to moment, and that happier thinker who considers rather our primary power of vision and of choice of road.
I
Well
don't know if you
then,
saw, I wrote a note there. It says, I'm already confused.
so what is it that if you had to put your confusion into a distilled sentence?
I'm just not following. I'm not, he's, I mean, every time he talks about opposite and pessimist, I get a little lost, like, cause it's not I feels like it was a bigger thing then. I don't know. I don't follow that. I mean, I understand, like, an optimist thinks, the world is generally good and good things will happen and you just, smile through it or whatever. The pessimist thinks all will die, everything will end, we're all going to suffer and die, like it's all sad and whatever, like, right? But like outside of
Yeah.
that, which, yeah, obviously both extremes were wrong. But then how does he get from there to, I really didn't understand, okay, one thing I really didn't get, an optimist is a man who looks after your eyes and a pessimist is a man who looks after your feet.
Yeah, that's the sort of whimsical, supposedly given by a little girl definition, which I found the most interesting part of this paragraph. Just to sort of set the context for everyone, this
Hmm.
Chesterton very often talks about optimism and pessimism. He's done
He
it
does.
already in Orthodoxy. He's going to do it some more. So this is a topic he returns to, and you can think of it in the way that it was kind of like a thing in his day. Like the idea of an optimist and a pessimist wasn't even invented until psychology became a thing in the late 1800s. And so it
Mm.
was like the new thing to talk about the way people looked at the world. In the
Uh,
ancient Roman times and in the medieval times, nobody said like you're an optimist, you're a pessimist.
mhm.
It was kind of like an artifact of modern psychology at that point
Right.
in Chesterton's life. So he uses it as kind of the butt of a lot of jokes, and he also kind of teases a lot about optimists and pessimists, as in they're kind of the wrong way of looking at people, but there is some truth to them. We're trying to get at something in the way people approach the world. So
Mm.
so he'll sometimes say something not so disparaging about the theories. And this is one of those times. So when he talks about that definition by the little girl, supposedly, an optimist is a man who looks after your eyes, and then he later on he says he connects that with the last part of that paragraph, which says the happier thinker who considers rather our primary power of vision and our choice of road. So that's the optimist. Concerned about your eyes because they're looking ahead to the future. They're envisioning what could be the positive in the world, or what how you might choose. And the pessimist is a man who looks after your feet, and the dreary that he connects it with the dreary thinker who thinks merely of our contact with the earth from moment to moment. So the pessimist is always focused on, like, here's the dirty reality of what we got to
Mhm.
deal with. There's going to be rocks in the road. You're going to stumble. Things are going to bad things are going to happen. But the thing that's interesting about this definition is it's one person, right? It's talking about them as in they look at kind of different parts. One is like the nitty gritty of how we deal with the world, which can get tough. That's the pessimist. And one is like our visionary, aspirational self, which is looking at the way the world could be, or where we want to go. And so I find that fascinating. Now, ultimately, what he's going to say is, just spoiler alert for the rest of this reading, but he's going
Mhm.
to just to give a real general so people can hear when they because he gets kind of lost in some of the. I mean, he really gets into detail in some of the parts of the reading.
Mhm.
Um, he's going to talk about optimism and pessimism as leading to two kinds of error with regard to what he thinks the way we should look at the world is. And he thinks the way we should look at the world is something different from both sort of extreme optimism and extreme pessimism. So
Okay.
he's just sort of introducing optimists and pessimists as, in a sort of Chestertonian musing. I just envision him like kind of sitting
Mhm.
here and staring at the ceiling these are the thoughts that come out,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
feel
the
like
way
it's
he
common
writes.
for first paragraph or section of a Chesterton essay to be like if he was gonna write an essay on barbecuing, he would start off the essay and he'd start talking about, like, a deer maybe, and then he might
Right.
talk about brown sugar, and he might even talk about something related to brown sugar, like, one step back in history from, like, before brown sugar was created, like, he'll talk out around it, he's gonna get to it, and it's gonna come together in this, but it's like he does this thing out there, and if you don't get how connects those things, it's really hard to follow the chapter.
Yes.
And this is one of those ones where I'm like, how does this optimist pessimist thing connect to what we're gonna get into? And so yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, he commits what we would consider a primary sin in the age of internet communication, which is he doesn't get right to the point. He's
Yeah.
he starts out kind of meandering, but he's
Hmm.
bringing in ideas which are going to be important, and
Yeah.
so that's I think that's what we're looking at here.
Okay. Well, let's keep climbing.
But this is a deep mistake in this alternative of the optimist and the pessimist. The assumption of it is that a man criticizes this world as if he were house hunting, as if he were being shown over a new suite of apartments. If a man came to this world from some other world, in full possession of his powers, he might discuss whether the advantage of midsummer woods made up for the disadvantage of mad dogs, just as a man looking for lodgings might balance the presence of a telephone against the absence of a sea view. But no man is in that position. A man belongs to this world before he begins to ask if it is nice to belong to it. He has fought for the flag and often won heroic victories for the flag long before he has ever enlisted. To put shortly what seems the essential matter, he has a loyalty long before he has any admiration.
Right.
The first half of that is a lot more obvious to me. The second half, I'm curious. How does he make the jump to like he has fought for the flag? So okay, well, let's just kind of
Yeah, there's not much actual fighting. What he just means is you're in it. Okay, so you're in this world.
you're
You've
not picking. You don't get to pick between this world and other worlds. You're not house
Yep.
hunting.
Yep,
You're born
think of it
into it.
like your family. You don't get to pick your family. You're just put into the world and you get the family you get. And he's saying that's the same thing for the world itself. We're in this world, and part of it's the major thing he's pointing out in this paragraph is optimists and pessimists are a way of looking at the world through through criticism and comparison. But you don't have any other choice. There's no it, you're in a world which you must live, and before you even can say whether it's good or not, it's a thing that that's there, and as we go through this paragraph, these new next paragraphs, you're going to find out he's going to think it's there, you're in it, and it's worth fighting for. And in fact, you owe a kind of loyalty, responsibility to the world that you're in. Um, this seems like interesting. This is a very interesting thing to me because Chesterton really gloms on just like he gloms on to the idea of the world being a wonderful and magical place that we should have a
Mhm.
reaction of gratitude towards and a respect for the mystery. We just went through the whole chapter about that. He's now going to say we also owe this world a loyalty. We should be willing to fight for it, to hate its evils and love its goods, and love it for its own sake, and not for the
Mhm.
sake because we have some utilitarian reason to love it or anything else. We should just kind of seize life by the throat and
Mhm.
be willing to make sacrifices to better it and better the world around us because it's the only one we got, because it's our
Mhm.
world and it's worth fighting for. You know, the
Mhm.
famous line, which, well, I don't know if you follow this. I'm a Tolkien guy, so
Mhm.
there's a line from the Peter Jackson films where Sam says to Frodo, "There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for." And
Mhm.
that was never actually said in the books. So it was one of the better lines from the movies. Um, and that's kind of the sense that I get from Chesterton this chapter.
Hmm. Okay. I think I'm still following. Let me go.
In the last chapter, it has been said that the primary feeling that this world is strange and yet attractive is best expressed in fairy tales. The reader may, if he likes, put down the next stage to that bellicose and even jingo literature, which commonly comes next in the history of a boy. We all owe much sound morality to the penny dreadfuls. Whatever the reason, it seemed and still seems to me that our attitude towards life can be better expressed in terms of a kind of military loyalty than in terms of criticism and approval. My acceptance of the universe is not optimism, it is more like patriotism. It is a matter of primary loyalty. The world is not a lodging house at Brighton, which we are to leave because it is miserable. It is the fortress of our family, with the flag flying on the turret. And the more miserable it is, the less we should leave it. The point is not that this world is too sad to love, or too glad not to love. The point is that when you do love a thing, its gladness is a reason for loving it, and its sadness a reason for loving it more. All optimistic thoughts about England and all pessimistic thoughts about her are alike reasons for the English patriot. Similarly, optimism and pessimism are alike arguments for the cosmic patriot.
Okay.
Okay.
It'd
So
probably
there's
be
an
good to explain the word jingo and jingoists or whatever.
right.
That comes
So
up a lot.
yeah. So jingo is a kind of almost marketing tactic, an idea that you should. It's kind of propagandistic. Idea that you
Is
that
that a name or is it where does it come from?
I don't know actually. That's good.
Oh,
I should have looked up the origin of the word, but it has an implication that it's sort of simple-minded and or overly simplifies what you ought to do about or believe or think about a thing. So a jingo is there's songs that are jingoistic. There's political propaganda that's jingoistic. There's literature that's jingoistic, and it just
mm,
sort of follows a common and obvious theme, and it's trying to um, the I guess the main point about a jingo is it's trying to get you to follow along. Its intent is very much to sway the listener or the reader to follow a path, and it's usually overly simplistic. And the Penny
and then the
Dreadful were
the
were
just real quick, the definition that I'm finding in it says of a vociferous supporter of policy favoring war, especially in the name of patriotism. I never realized that that was a consistent.
huh? Is it specific to war then? I That's interesting. I didn't know
That
that.
there's a couple different definitions here, and all of them seem to say like aggressive nationalism, like really aggressive
I
nationalism.
bet you it's from some it's a probably a 19th
But that,
century word then, because I
yeah, it
don't.
says mid 17th century.
Oh, wow, that's
May
old.
represent a euphemistic alteration of "by Jesus," jingo, comes from a popular song adopted by those supporting the sending of a British fleet into Turkish waters to resist Russia in 1878. So I
How's
guess the
that
original
19th century?
word by jingo came from late 19th, 17th century, and then late 1878 was we don't want to fight yet by jingo if we do we've got the ships, we've got the men, and got the money too. All right, by jingo,
So, like as a replacement for Jesus or something, like
I
a curse,
guess, yeah,
like
something like that.
taking Jesus's name. All right,
Mhm.
so yeah, so I don't know how that gets to be us to the 16th century. It seems odd, but anyway, maybe we'll find a
It said
reference later
mid
on.
17th is what it says here, right? Is that what I
Oh
said?
yeah. Okay, so mid 17th, so 1600s. That's But then it's the only
But I
reference we
think
got was from the
so. It's
1800s.
saying originally a conjurer's word by jingo.
Oh, conjurers. Well,
Oh,
there you go. All right.
yeah, anyway,
So
we're digging deep
conjurer's
on
word
jingo
that
here.
eventually got wrapped up in wartime propaganda.
Mhm. Through a
Patriotic.
song.
Interesting. Okay.
Alright. Okay.
So, and then Penny Dreadfuls are those. We might have even mentioned them before, but they're
It brings
books.
them up.
Yeah, they're
It's
they're
like
these.
dime store novels, like, kind of fun.
Yeah, they were stories you could buy for a penny, and they were so bad. Their content was so poorly written, and so
Mm,
they were called Penny Dreadfuls because their
mm.
literary quality was dreadful. But but they were cheap and people read them, especially children and people with
Mhm.
not much money, but who wanted a story to make them, I don't know, entertain them, I guess.
Right.
So, I mean, the main point here, though, of this paragraph, at least I think, is that
Mhm.
basically we should have a kind of patriotism about the world. He's going to go more into that.
Mhm.
And just like the patriotism for our country, you can sit and criticize your country for what it does, but you don't love it any less just because it has flaws.
Right.
You still love your country, and in fact, the fact that you love it makes you want to change the things that it does if it's doing the wrong thing, and we should
Mhm.
have the same. Well, he's going to go more into that in this
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
the next um, this is the first Chesterton drive by in this chapter. I guess he kind of drove by optimism and pessimism a little bit, but
It's true.
catching some lead is Pimlico, which is part of
That's how you
London.
pronounce that? Pimlico?
I believe so.
Oh, I said it was Pimlico. It just sounds like
Is it
okay.
Pimlico?
I have no
I
idea.
could be wrong.
You've been
Uh,
to where's Pimlico? Pimlico.
it is in London.
Okay.
It was a part of
You've
London that
been
actually wasn't settled for a long time. London is a very old city,
Mhm.
but Pimlico or wherever. It
Uh-huh.
is, it was marsh originally, and, it wasn't settled until the 1800s, and
Hmm.
then it was settled badly and essentially turned into low-income housing and became slums by the time Chesterton was born and was living in it. No, he wasn't living there, but, had, heard of it. So, yeah, Pimlico, I'll go with
Yeah, because
Pimlico.
he does refer to it as if we should understand a lot of really like he's like nudging us like Pimlico, right? So yeah, good to have
Yeah,
that
well, think of
context.
like South Central LA or something like
Okay.
that.
That's what
It's
I kind
a
of guessed when I read it.
it's a slum in London.
Okay. I mean Pimlico. We'll see how I'm pretty sure AI says it the way that I thought though, so we'll see. You went to way more
Probably.
college than me, so I always hate to defy you
No,
on
no, no,
things.
no, well, I've been wrong already this paragraph, so it's fun to be wrong. Let's be
Okay.
wrong more.
I don't want to have anything happen to you, blow up and quit the podcast on me. Just kidding. Frail academic types, you guys, you know. All right, here we go.
No, no. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, the
sorry,
the
go ahead.
thing about all this stuff, like, when you hear these words, so many times, even as an academic, even if you had academic training or whatever, you only read the word, you don't
Right, right,
actually
right.
hear it pronounced. So
Yeah.
yeah, good
No, I
question.
know.
Let's
That's
see how
interesting.
AI pronounces it.
Okay, here we go. We're diving in.
Let us suppose we are confronted with a desperate thing, say Pimlico. If we think what is really best for Pimlico, we shall find the thread of thought leads to the throne or the mystic and the arbitrary. It is not enough for a man to disapprove of Pimlico. In that case, he will merely cut his throat or move to Chelsea. Nor, certainly, is it enough for a man to approve of Pimlico, for then it will remain Pimlico, which would be awful. The only way out of it seems to be for somebody to love Pimlico, to love it with a transcendental tie and without any earthly reason. If there arose a man who loved Pimlico, then Pimlico would rise into ivory towers and golden pinnacles. Pimlico would attire herself as a woman does when she is loved. For decoration is not given to hide horrible things, but to decorate things already adorable. A mother does not give her child a blue bow because he's so ugly without it. A lover does not give a girl a necklace to hide her neck. If men loved Pimlico as mothers love children, arbitrarily because it is theirs, Pimlico in a year or two might be fairer than Florence. Some readers will say that this is a mere fantasy. I answer that this is the actual history of mankind. This is a fact is how cities did grow great. Go back to the darkest roots of civilization, and you will find them knotted round some sacred stone or
Yep.
encircling some sacred well. People first paid honor to a spot and afterwards gained glory for it. Men did not love Rome because she was great. She was great
Hmm.
because they had loved her.
All
It
right,
is always fascinating to like think and like real like any place. is just it's an idea that's all agreed upon in our heads. Like this is America. It's not physically in under a microscope America. Like it's just an idea that it's so fascinating to me. Like because it's so real to us, you know.
Yes. Yes, and this this is that's a really important idea, Ethan. I think one of the things that this paragraph and this chapter is getting at is something really interesting and transcendental, where Chesterton's pointing out that where he's presuming, and presuming rightly, I think, that we are more than material and we love
Right.
things in a more than material way. There's no, you know, uh, like you said, examination under a microscope, which could prove to us you should love America or you should be attached to Southern California where you grew
Or
up.
even that it is America. You know, it's just
Um,
it's
your hometown, you should be attached to that. There's something in us that wants to give that love, and there's no earthly reason to quote him without any earthly reason.
right.
Now, of course, there are reasons, and they have to do with our growing up in places and love by exposure. Like we by contact, we love the world. We see it as good. In Scripture, God says it's good in Genesis over and over
Hmm.
again. He sees what he's created and he says this is good. And I think we do the same thing. And Chesterton's pointing us to that fact. We take what's around us and we love it, or we can anyway, have a love for it that can then make it great. And what he does in the very end of the paragraph is really cool because he does this really quick, like a jujitsu move where he flips and all of a sudden enters into a new part of of his argument for orthodoxy, which is that, by the way, it isn't. I'm just not just talking about this universal patriotism we should have, or this patriotism for the world that we should have. But if you ever want to see what makes things great in the world, what makes the places that we love, the countries, the nations, it's because it started with something sacred, a sacred stone or a
Hmm.
sacred well, something at the heart. And he's gonna argue for this religious element to
Mm.
our or the generation of our countries that we love, our peoples that we love, and he will argue the world that we should love.
Mm.
So it's kind of cool. He kind of gives you a little flip there at the end
Yeah, yeah.
that he's going to then go in more into.
So is he juxtaposing this patriotic way of thinking versus optimism and pessimism, like the optimist and the pessimist? I'm trying to
Well, he's
really kind
left
of
the
like
optimists and pessimists aside for a second. He's going to
yeah,
return to
yeah.
them. He's going to
Okay.
return to them because he's going to show. And by the way, to return to optimists and pessimists, here's their misguided way of looking at the world versus the one that I'm proposing. He's
Mhm.
proposing a middle ground. He's proposing a middle ground that is, in fact, also very extreme, a weird middle ground, which he's going to go more into. But he's saying you shouldn't be an extremist optimist. You shouldn't be an extremist pessimist. You should find the love for the world in what you do without the judgment, the wrongheaded judgment on either way, because those wrongheaded judgments lead you away from real love. And
Mm.
this is the kind of the key, and he's going to get into this when he talks about what pessimists are, which I
Mm.
find fascinating, but the extreme pessimists. So anyway, but he's first going to take down John Locke without talking about him.
Okay.
He's going to go after the social contract idea of this is how governments began was through social contracts, and he's going to go, well, not really.
Okay. Well, let's just keep going then.
The 18th century theories of the social contract have been exposed to much clumsy criticism in our time, insofar as they meant that there is at the back of all historic government an idea of content and cooperation. They were demonstrably right. But they really were wrong, insofar as they suggested that men had ever aimed at order or ethics directly by a conscious exchange of interests. Morality did not begin by one man saying to another, I will not hit you if you do not hit me. There is no trace of such a transaction. There is a trace of both men having said, we must not
Right.
hit each other in the holy place. They gained their morality by guarding their religion. They did not cultivate courage. They fought for the shrine and found they had become courageous. They did not cultivate cleanliness. They purified themselves for the altar and found that they were clean. The history of the Jews is the only early document known to most Englishmen, and the facts can be judged sufficiently from that. The 10 Commandments, which have been found substantially common to mankind, were merely military commands, a code of regimental orders issued to protect a certain ark across a certain desert. Anarchy was evil because it endangered the sanctity, and only when they made a holy day for God did they find they had made a holiday for men.
All right, so this is developing more on the sacred stone and sacred well idea from the previous paragraph by saying, um, not only did we start cities that became great and civilizations that became great by starting with a small sacred center, and then loving it, but we also developed morality the same way, which is completely right. It's one idea that John Locke and Berkeley and Rousseau and uh, Hobbes to a certain extent. They were all these great thinkers that talked about what the origins of political organization were in society and morality. And one of the ideas that they came up with was, well, this is the men's idea of morality and law and what's just and not just is all about them making a deal with each other that we'll give up certain freedoms of what we can do, and we'll say it's wrong to do certain things to other people so that we could then enjoy the benefits that come with the civilization, the protection and comforts, and the benefits of cooperation, etc. And Chesterton gives a little nod to that at the beginning. He says, there was always an idea of content and cooperation in government, but and this is literally true. Go back to all the earliest records of government that we have, and you will never find a document saying we agree to not do this to you if you agree to not do this to me. What's first in the foundations is the idea of guarding a temple or a sacred space. The sacred is the basis for the respect for government and cooperation. Even if you have a monarchy, the whole idea, whether it was a tribal monarch or Charlemagne or the King of England, they all thought that they had the right to rule and everyone should respect that. And there should be an authority. They have an authority because it was divine, because they received it somehow from the gods or from God. And so the sacred is always at the core. And he, of course, uses the example of the Jews in the desert in Exodus to bolster this. But the sacred was always at the heart of law. What was right and how civilizations formed was always, it started with religion. It started with the sacred, and then it built outward from that.
Remind me, can we do like the quick chain link? We started it on optimists and pessimists.
Yeah, sure.
And then he went to patriotism for this world.
Right. So optimism and pessimism were set up as here's the way people talk about things. I'm gonna bring them up again later on, but I don't think that's a good way to talk about things because that involved a critique of the world, which we ought not to have. Instead of critiquing the world, we should be loyal to the world. We should have a patriotism about the world. And we should have that patriotism, which loves even without an earthly reason. Even if you're in the worst corner of the world, which I guess in London would be Pimlico. And so even then you should have a love for a place. And if you do have a love for the world that you live in, your world, if your world is Pimlico, then that can lead to greatness. Thus was Rome built. And
So
by the way,
argument for patriotism rather than optimism, pessimism.
Yeah. So that's the first. That leads to not only was should you have this loyalty, but by the way, that's where all the laws come from. That's where the idea of morality comes from. Is this loyalty to the place, and that's rooted in the sacred. That's rooted in religious respect for sacred things and religious things. So it's not only that you should just have this love because you can do great things and build Rome. Interestingly enough, one of the cornerstones of Rome was that Rome was the sacred city, and you offered sacrifice to the city herself
Mhm.
when you were Rome. So it was Chesterton is just pointing out, hey, look, the faith and the belief in the divine and religion was always at the core of this kind of patriotism. To be patriotic to Rome and to be pious towards Rome in a religious
Mhm.
sense were almost indistinguishable for the ancient Roman. And so
Mm.
Chesterton's saying that's the way it is with the Jews, that's the way it is with the Romans, that's the way it is with all the ancient civilizations. That's the way it should be with us.
I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be patriotic for a place, especially for a world, if the world is being created by random chance.
Right. Right. Which is why he's saying at the seed of this loyalty is always this this intuitive understanding of the sacred and of the thing that is sort of above the normal hoi polloi of what we
Mhm.
have to deal with in the world. It's the religious,
Right.
and then that can be then that place, that sacred space that we protect, becomes for us a kind of launching pad that we can do great things with.
Okay. All right. Continuing on.
If it be granted that this primary devotion to a place or thing is a source of creative energy, we can pass on to a very peculiar fact. Let us reiterate for an instant that the only right optimism is a sort of universal patriotism. What is the matter with the pessimist? I think it can be stated by saying that he is the cosmic anti-patriot. And what is the matter with the anti-patriot? I think it can be stated without undue bitterness by saying that he is the candid friend. And what is the matter with the candid friend? There we strike the rock of real life and immutable human nature.
That's a little paragraph before a bigger paragraph. Seems like he's leading in.
Right. Well,
Candid
so here,
friend. Is
yeah,
candid
here we're
friend like the guys in Job? His like buddies in Job.
yeah, yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, the candid friend, you have to remember he's British, so a candid
Oh.
friend is not much of a friend. Like very much about politeness and such. And so the candid friend
Oh.
is the friend who's the pessimist who is just always pointing out the dark parts of your life, of you.
Mm.
Um, and he's about to tell you why that's so wrong. In other words, what goes wrong, where does pessimism go wrong? Now, what's interesting is he starts out by saying there is a kind of optimism that he accepts, which is
Mm.
the universal patriotism. Um, then he goes into taking some shots at the pessimists,
Mhm.
but he's going to go back and he's going to say in another paragraph, um, what's wrong with the extreme optimist, which is not the one that he approves of.
Mm.
But right now he's talking about the extreme pessimist, and he's going to say what's wrong with him. He's an anti-patriot. He's the opposite
Mm.
of what I'm hoping everyone should be. And what's wrong with that? Well, it's like your candid friend who says to you, "I'm just I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you the truth, man." And he's going to say something here in this paragraph, which I love. I laughed out loud when I read it this time because it's so true. It's like, this is what we find wrong. There are, I'll avoid going into too much detail, but there are influencers on the internet right now that make their mark by saying, look, I'm just asking questions. I'm just opening it up and telling the truth. And, you don't hate me because I'm being honest. And Chesterton's about to get at why we really dislike these people, or why we can easily dislike these people.
All right. Chesterton's taking on Candace Owens. Let's go.
I didn't.
I venture to say that what is bad in the candid friend is simply that he is not candid. He is keeping something back, his own gloomy pleasure in saying
Mhm.
unpleasant things. He has a secret desire to hurt,
This is it.
not merely to help. This is certainly, I think, what makes a certain sort of anti-patriot irritating to healthy citizens. I do not speak, of course, of the anti-patriotism which only irritates feverish stockbrokers and gushing actresses. That is only patriotism speaking plainly. A man who says that no patriot should attack the Boer War until it is over is not worth answering intelligently. He is saying that no good son should warn his mother off a cliff until she's fallen over it. But There is an anti-patriot who honestly angers honest men, and the explanation of him is, I think, what I've suggested. He is the uncandid, candid friend, the man who says, I'm sorry to say we are ruined, and is not
Yep.
sorry at all. And he may be said, without rhetoric, to be a traitor, for he is using that ugly knowledge which was allowed him to strengthen the army to discourage people from joining it. Because he is allowed to be pessimistic as a military advisor, he is being pessimistic as a recruiting sergeant. Just in the same way, the pessimist, who is the cosmic anti-patriot, uses the freedom that life allows to her counselors to lure away the people from her flag. Granted that he states only facts, it is still essential to know what are his emotions, what is his motive. It may be that 1,200 men in Tottenham are down with smallpox, but we want to know whether this is stated by some great philosopher who wants to curse the gods, or only by some common clergyman who wants to help the men.
Love this paragraph. I love it. Yeah, for me, the part that hits closest to home is in the beginning when he says, um, yeah, he's talking about the quote unquote candid friend,
Mhm.
um, who keeps something back, and that thing is his own gloomy pleasure in saying unpleasant things. He has a secret desire to hurt, not merely to help. Yeah, it's so true. It says he says later on, he is the uncandid candid friend, the man who says, "I'm sorry to say we are ruined," and is not sorry
Mhm.
at all. And that is
Mhm.
the totally the vibe of so many of people nowadays who, when commenting on the news, or they're sitting there exposing dark secrets, or what they think is dark secrets, sometimes what is, and
Mhm.
they're just the, their defense is, but this is really happening. This is like, I'm just
Mhm.
telling you the facts.
Mhm.
To which Chesterton says, granted that he states only facts, it is essential to know what are his emotions, what is his motive. Now, why is that essential? Why is it essential to say, I mean, someone could come back at Chesterton. I can imagine people nowadays, I've heard people
Mhm.
nowadays saying, look, what's wrong with that? He's just telling us the truth. This commentator,
Mhm.
they're just exposing all the lies that the politicians are telling us. Um, so that could be true, and not the exposure of lies, as he's going to go into with the optimist, the false optimist, is a good thing. But the question we really want to know is, what's your real motivation here? Do you
Mhm.
really? Because, and why is that? Because in the struggle that we are in life, we need to know that people have our best interest at heart. So
Mhm.
N when people don't, when they just wanna hurt others, when they just like destroying reputations of people, when they just
Mhm.
like tearing others down, and they get
Mhm.
glee out of it, and it's like
Right.
watching a train wreck, and they just enjoy the watching the train wreck or commenting on it, saying that it was inevitable and was bound to happen. That kind of person is a kind of traitor to the work that we're all in the world, which is trying to make a better world, and in a better world, you need to be able to have the people's best interests at heart. You need to be a friend. And the candid friend that Chesterton is talking about is no true friend. I don't know. I've known a couple of people
Hmm.
like that personally in my life. I don't know if you have, but it's difficult to be friends with people that are like that.
Right.
If they take pleasure in that hurting of others and their reputations just by stating facts.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference between stating facts and getting to the truth, like wanting to get to the truth. They're two different things. You can use statement of facts to get to whatever ends you want to get to if you're stating particular facts, leaving other ones out. So it's a
Right,
bit
there's
of
that
a.
famous line by Benjamin Disraeli that then Mark Twain later on used, which was, "There are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics."
All
Uh,
right.
a which is, like you said, it's alluding to the fact that you can use facts to destroy things. You can use facts to even to lie sometimes, or
Hmm.
uh, to create an untrue picture of things, but
Right.
building only with facts.
Mhm.
kernels of truth. So yeah, Chesterton's getting at a real heart of things. Why don't we like pessimists? Well, because we know intuitively they don't have our best interests in mind. They like saying unpleasant things. They like telling us what what losers we are, or how it's all hopeless and everything's going to crap. They enjoy that, and we don't like people that enjoy that. Like, most of humanity doesn't like people that enjoy that. You might click on a video and chuckle about something because they're particularly, you know um, uh,
Mhm.
red in the face, and it's funny to watch people flip out, sometimes. But you never want that person as a real friend. You don't trust
Mhm.
them. So
I'm curious, he says, this just may be me. I just get lost on these little details sometimes. He says, "This is certainly, I think, what makes a certain sort of anti-patriot irritating to healthy citizens. I do not speak, of course, of the anti-patriotism which only irritates feverish stockbrokers and gushing actresses. That is only patriotism speaking plainly." So there's a so okay, so
and then he gives the
anti-patriot.
example of the Boer War. So what he's saying is,
Okay,
like, okay, so nowadays it would be this. It would be people saying, "Don't talk badly about the wars America gets in because the stock prices are going to go down if too many people get."
I see, I see.
Um, and his point is, look, if we're doing the wrong thing, like they were in the Boer War, at least a lot of British thought they were in the Boer War, and that was the war, in the turn of the 20th century, 1899 to 1902. It was, technically it was the second Boer War, but that was the one that got a lot of attention, where essentially the British sent like 500,000 soldiers ultimately to South Africa, because the white farmers there that had settled there long ago were unhappy with the white gold diggers that were coming, that hunting gold, that came into, and the anarchy that followed, and so the and it was a huge mess. Turned out to be
Right.
a guerrilla war, and there were a lot of atrocities committed, and so a lot of British did not like their own country's involvement in the Boer War.
So
So
yeah, it's interesting between taking pleasure in the fall of your own country versus criticizing it because you love it. And
right,
then that criticism being seen as anti-patriotic just because the stockbrokers and the actresses are kind of,
yep,
they're serving
exactly.
their own interests. Okay, that makes sense. All right. All right, final paragraph is kind of short. So here we go.
The evil of the pessimist is then not that he chastises gods and men, but that he does not love what he chastises. He has not this primary and supernatural loyalty to things. What is the evil of the man commonly called an optimist? Obviously, it is felt that the optimist, wishing to defend the honor of this world, will defend the indefensible. He is the jingo of the universe. He will say, "My cosmos, right or wrong." He will be less inclined to the reform of things, more inclined to a sort of front bench official answer to all attacks, soothing everyone with assurances. He will not wash the world, but whitewash the world. All this, which is true of a type of optimist, leads us to the one really interesting point of psychology, which could not be explained without it.
And that point of psychology is coming next time
Dun,
on Chesterton's
dun.
Gateway.
Yeah, and so here he just laid out. He just took down the pessimist, for his anti-patriotism, his being a traitor essentially to the loyalty to the world that he owes. But he says there's a kind of optimist that does the same thing on the reverse, that pretends that black is white, and just tries to cover up all of the wrongs, just for the mere fact of I guess avoiding confrontation and having everyone have pleasant thoughts all the time. Um,
Hmm,
he doesn't go into exactly why, although he's going to tell us a little bit more about that next time.
hmm,
But the front bench references, of course, to British Parliament. So the front
okay.
benchers were the ones at the literally on the first bench of the Parliament. The two sides, or the multiple sides, faced each other across and their front benches were the ones that were the yelling the loudest, and they're always telling the party slogans and keeping everyone in line. And if you want to know the party line, that was literally the party line. It was the line of men sitting on the front bench of
Hmm.
Parliament that would tell you, here's the Tory opinion, here's the Labour opinion. whatever, whichever political party. So that he's saying these people are, and we know this, like, we don't trust politicians for this reason, especially politicians who are giving their speeches. We're like, we just tune them out because they're just going to say a
Right.
bunch of whatever the approved message is for their political party.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll find out what's. I know that. Yeah. Yeah. Let's find. We'll get
What's the
into it.
one really interesting point of psychology?
Yes, we're gonna find out coming up next. But for
Next
now,
time, join us.
please remove your hats.
Oh, wait, forgot my hat to remove it.
It's a little bit of instrumental for a while before they start singing in. So keep saying stuff. Yeah. Decided a new chapter. Here we go.
And his crazy wild hair, so unkempt and curled, gave proof through the night of the flag of the world. Oh, say, does that cape that he wears yet wave o'er the land
Nice.
of the elves and the rings of the
Chesterton's Gateway is produced by Ethan Nicolle and Michael Grumbine. It is based on the book of the same name, which can be found on that capitalist monstrosity Amazon.com. Send questions and comments to Chesterton's Gateway at gmail.com. And join us on Patreon, where only the true Chestertonians can be found. Goodbye.
All right. Till next time.
And what would,
Well,
think about this, folks, if you had to make a flag of the world, a la Chesterton, what would it look like?
oh, okay. Yeah. You have an assignment now. You have a craft. Go home and do a craft.
Tell us what would be on the flag. Bye now.